Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is part 2 of episode 11. We're just continuing the conversation on race and inequality and the things that are going on in the country right now. So we hope you enjoy. If you haven't seen the first part, go check that out and then come back and listen to this. We hope you enjoy. But yeah, that's so another question that we had we had talked about it a couple of times, like off camera, was with the two most recent cases, or the three most recent cases, because we'll add in
Brianna.
the dispatcher.
I hadn't heard of the Brianna one until just now.
Yeah. So. With those three, is there something that feels different about those in regards to what's happened in the past and the cases that have happened in the past? Or is it, this is the way that it's always felt from the other side of the fence?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
if that makes sense, because it's from all the white people we've talked to, these two. Well, we specifically said the Minneapolis and then the one in Georgia, Ahmaud. These feel different than all of the other, like hands up, don't shoot, the loose cigarette guy in New York. Mm-hmm. All of these ones, I immediately said, like, oh, those guys wrong. Murdered them, put them in prison. Yeah. There's no way to justify this. And that's just from our perspective. And we talked to a bunch of people that agree that these feel different, like, oh, dang, this actually does seem racial, or I see what has been being chanted for 6 years on social media.
Like, I get it now.
Or like, if I were to feel this way about all those other ones, I kind of get, like, Black Lives Matter and this is actually systemic race. Well, not systemic, but like two white guys gunning down a dude, like they have a turret on the back of a tank down a street with their gun. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah. That dude's already handcuffed and you put your knee on his neck for 5 minutes. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. And then if Brianna, they just blow up in her house and kill people. Yeah. My gosh. Yeah. And so just from this side, those feel different than the ones since 2016 or 14, whatever it was.
For me, it all feels the same. Mm-hmm.
That's what we figured.
Yeah, it all feels the same because, based on, like I said earlier, I'm just lamenting the fact that that someone made in the image of God has lost their life that didn't have to, and so that is my first. That is my first take on it, right? And it's like I mourn that fact first and foremost. It also feels the same because I feel like I'm watching a movie that I've seen before, and it is not so much the circumstances surrounding the death; it's just the lack of justice that comes from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in a lot of these instances, man, where you get an officer, no matter their color, who
abusing their
power. Yeah. It's like you think, like, and this is where I talk about from a systemic standpoint, because the system has allowed that.
Yeah.
It's essentially state sanctioned execution.
Yeah.
The power and authority that resides in that individual came from that system, and that system has failed to educate them and has failed to instruct them in how to do their job in a way that preserves life and it adds dignity to the communities that they serve.
Yeah.
And so where is the what do you call it? The racial sensitivity training? Mm-hmm. Where is the community policing as a mandate of all police departments? Where is, just the simple things that we can do to ensure that either you're going to come in and do this job the way it's supposed to be done, or you're not going to be a part of this.
We're following up on stuff.
We remove the protections for these bad officers because, like if it was me, man, like, and I was on a good officer, man, I'd be screaming to the top of my lungs because that's affecting me and how I do my job and how the public perceives me when I'm doing my work. Yeah. And I would like to think that I would speak up in those moments, but what happens is you see these incidents happen and then you see that there's no justice afterwards.
Yeah.
And it just, you feel like I said, you're watching a movie over
So
and over
does
again.
it help when there is justice?
Well,
yeah.
So
like the guy in Minneapolis is going to prison for murder.
But also and I saw somebody post recently about this. It said, it's great that we got him, but look for the appeals in the next few years.
Yeah.
Like look for what happens 5 years later. Does this guy get off?
Yeah.
So like then you look at it has to become a reoccurring thing that if you abuse your power, right, that you serve time for these incidents because it sends a message without saying anything, right? And then you look at there was an officer in that area last year, it was an African American officer, shot the white lady
in Minneapolis.
It was either in Minneapolis or. It was in Michigan or Minneapolis. I think it was in Minneapolis.
Okay.
But they put him away. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you want to hope and you want to think that that's going to be the case with this, but then you're hesitant, man. You're hesitant
because you've seen it
to be
happen.
hopeful. And here's the thing. It's not about this individual officer for me. Like that's a part of what people oftentimes think that individuals who want to see justice and equity and fairness, they think that it's one or the other. Like I don't hate this man or want to see his life destroyed. You know what I'm saying? Like I want him to have the same opportunity to be redeemed by the love of Christ as what in my shortcomings and proclivities I've been granted the opportunity. Like the woman in the park in Central Park that called
the
police
dog.
And so like. She lost her job. Do I think that she should not have the right to work for the rest of her life? No.
Yeah.
But guess what? If nothing happens, you know what I'm saying? Like, and if no one speaks up, and it becomes perpetual. And so when I see the difference that I see now between Mike Brown and these incidents is that I'm just a little bit, just a smidge more hopeful that justice will be served. And I'm gonna tell you what makes the difference, guys. I'm gonna tell you what makes the difference. It is the outrage of the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is the outrage of the majority, man.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference when we come together collectively and say this is wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like and you guys' voice at times and in certain spaces and places holds more weight than mine. And so when you say it, it's like, okay, like yeah, and I know that sometimes that blows people's mind, but it's like it's the truth. Yeah, it is the truth. Now you probably gonna get more backlash than I would saying that because people are gonna look at me and say, "Oh, just another angry black man," or "Oh, he's just upset about the status quo." Like, but when you say it, it's like people are gonna be either convicted by it or they're gonna become angry with you about it. Yeah, but that's just that's the risk we run by speaking truth to power and love. But it just feels different because I feel like people are just a little bit more fed up this time. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that we've been seeing them on camera since 2016. But in large part before that, it's been
swept under the rug.
Yeah, man. And that's what grieves my spirit, man. It's like how I know how many times it's been swept under the rug. Like I've experienced it in my own life. Like I've had family members killed in racially motivated incidents like that we know for a fact. And it was just small town Alabama.
Swept under the rug.
Swept under the rug. Like racial violence is like just as American pie for a lot of, African Americans in this country. And it's just like we know the stories, we've heard them. And so now we're just like, we need allies. And we're hoping that we can speak grace truthfully. Speak the truth gracefully to our, and start living in community. The thing about it too is we look at Sunday morning at 11 o'clock and it's the most divided time.
Oh my gosh, that's
in America.
Yeah.
Think about this. The largest spiritual revival and movement that ever happened in this country, the Great Awakening, was happening at the exact same time that we were setting up and instituting slavery. So our discipleship has to change. Our theology has to change, right? So we have to move past the feel good theology and orthodoxy of love one another, let's all come together and then God will heal the land. We got to move that into orthopraxy, which is right practice, and start doing some of these things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it first has to start in our churches.
Yeah.
And in these pulpits, you know what I'm saying? When people have the opportunity to stand before God's people, we have to preach the whole word, man. Mm-hmm. We got to preach justice.
And how frustrating is it that, and this isn't across the board the same, but like the same people, and I say same, so I'll just say liberals, mostly like extreme left liberals, but like the ones that are screaming the loudest for social justice are also trying to shut churches down. Mm-hmm. And like, you can't, like we've said this 1,000 times already in this, that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. If the church goes, it's got to start in the church with Christians doing it from the ground up. You can't be screaming for help, but then not let the helpers help. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Yeah. That's frustrating to me.
Yeah. Explain to me when you say like shutting the church down. What do you mean?
So like in a few years back, the mayor of Houston, it was a lady, she tried to pass legislation that all churches in Houston, did I say the governor of Houston? I meant mayor.
Mayor.
Okay, I said mayor. Okay. Yeah. The mayor of Houston, the mayor of Houston a few years ago tried to pass legislation that all churches in Houston had to send in their notes to her before that Sunday, and then they'd tell the church, like, you can't say that or that or that or that. And just in general, the trying to destroy faith, like Christianity in general, but also literally like it's with with this Corona stuff, like the government's not allowed to tell churches to not open. Yeah. Can't do that. And it's just kind of like most far left liberals are not believers. Mm-hmm. That's safe to say?
I don't know. I don't know the statistics on that, but
they tend to be more non-religious, agnostic, science-based, not faith. There's no God. This is all we have. But then they'll never have the power to fix any of the things.
Yeah. So I think that that
was worded weird, but I
understand I understand what you're getting at completely. I understand what you're getting at. So in terms of like the this idea of faith versus reason, that's what it really boils down to. It's been a debate since the beginning of the history of the church. So
Paul debated scientists in Acts, I think.
Yeah, then you got there's church fathers that debated that, but in terms of I don't need the building of the church to be the institution of the church.
Yeah.
And so no matter, and I think we have it so good here in America, and we're a little bit spoiled.
Not a little bit.
Yeah. But when we look at the church, the institution of the church in other parts of the world who are persecuted and who are oppressed, like they don't depend on the physical building of the church to do what needs to be the church. And so I'm cool with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I have an understanding that it's not the people that sustain the church. It is the Lord's church. Yeah. And he will sustain it. And through the prophetic voice of the people that he chooses, right? His message will get out to the people. Yeah. We can still be there for the least of these. We can still live in community, and we can still do everything that we can do that we need to do apart from the physical building of the church. And so like, I guess that's why I kind of don't get caught up in like the building, the church shutting down. Like we still haven't opened up our church either. Like it's out of just a love for the vulnerable among us and our neighbor. Cause it's like, when you think about what you do at church, like you're standing, you're singing, you're talking, and reason would tell us from those who are medical professionals is like that puts people at risk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of elderly at our church.
Yeah,
we have a
for
lot
sure.
of people who are they're
immunocompromised.
Yeah. And so it's just like we made that decision to stay closed just out of a love for our neighbor. And so like, but we don't consider ourselves closed.
Yeah.
Like the building is closed, but we as the church
Still
are not
open.
closed. Yeah. Like Wednesday, we're having a food drive for the community or drive through. We're just going to open people's doors and put the food in. We've had supply drives.
What are y'all having? Because we might stop by.
Hey man,
just kidding.
drive
I'm
up,
just
pull
kidding.
up,
I'm just
pull
kidding.
up.
Yeah.
No, but like, and there's been other ministry things that we've done, whether virtually or with social distancing, that we continue to be the church. And that's why I said our theology has to change about what the church like really is, and like what the Word of God says about how we become the church and how we engage in, like, it's not a country club. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a social club. Like we are a called people, a set apart people with a set of directives from the creator of heaven and earth to do certain things that none of it requires a bit of, like in Acts when they start to multiply by the thousands, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a physical building to meet in. It's like house churches, and it spreads, the love of Christ spreads between people and people groups, and the buildings are great. Like the edifices, like they are amazing. And when we look at antiquity, they were used as a sign of reverence and praise to God. So like you could look at the building and see how much the people in that area love the Lord. Like they took the time
how
to
nice
make it, like we honor the Lord with this this building, but it's like this is not where the church resides. You know, it resides in its community of people. So I think that I really don't get disheartened by it. You know, like it bothers me, you know what I'm saying? And I pray for individuals who think like that. I really pray for that God would soften their heart and would really do a work in them. But in terms of it feeling like it threatens the life of the church, I'm like, nah. Yeah. Because it's the Lord who's
still gonna be here.
It's gonna be here, man. We've been through plagues before.
Right.
The bubonic plague. That's why that's what really caused a great schism.
That's when they started doing online church, right?
right. Yeah. It's like it created a great schism in the church because when the bubonic plague came, there weren't enough priests to do the last rites for people. Yeah. And so they said, well, find a good man. Well, then the plague started killing off all the men, and they're like, well, find a good woman. You know what I'm saying? And then it started killing off the women, and it was like, well, do it yourself. Yeah. And then when they came out of the plague, people were like, well, if we could have been doing it ourselves all along. And so that really played into this whole concept of like the royal priesthood of all believers. Like, so man, I'm telling you, God can use moments like these to create some beautiful change and progress for his people.
These are the times he uses the most. Yeah. Because that's anytime you see, not saying that Christians in the United States are getting persecuted, especially like physically or actually persecuted. That's when the church grows more.
Yeah, and it's traditionally it has. In antiquity, it has grown out of persecution.
And even if you look at 9/11, you couldn't find a seat in a church for like 8 months after 9/11 happened. Yeah. That's just what happens is people get introspective and start really taking account of, I got to get some stuff together, man. And then
and so that's why I said it's important for theologically, because people are going to run. Some people are going to run to the church for answers and for
we got to be ready for that.
Yeah, and we got to speak to these issues. Like my parishioners, Psalm 23 was not on their mind this Sunday.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You know, George Floyd was on their mind this Sunday. Yeah. And guess what? As a leader and someone who has the opportunity to preach the word, I'm so glad that the Bible speaks to these incidents. Yeah. But I have to speak to the people about them. I can't avoid them. Like if I'm doing some series, I can't continue on with my sermon series.
Part 4.
Just because it's up. No, let's speak to what is on the hearts and minds of God's people. Yeah. And inform the people through the lens of the word of God.
Yeah. And so one thing that I've been thinking since we had talked about this was I feel like one thing that really drives a point home is like personal experience. Yeah. And so like I've heard stories from other people that, you know, they say, hey, this happened to me, and like I knew that person, and I go, well, there's no way that this guy was acting in a way that, you know, would warrant what happened to them. And so I was just curious if you wanted to speak on them, if you didn't, what is something personally or that you've known that's happened that was just
like with a relative or close friend?
Yeah, just like this is ridiculous. You know?
So when I talked about the beginning of the episode, I'll just do two because I know time is
you're good, man.
Down,
hey, as much time as we
this
need.
Is what it's about. Yeah.
So I talked about my 3 great grandfathers who moved over from the Caribbean, fruit salesmen, all of that. That was on my dad's side of the family. Well, on my mom's side of the family, my grandmother was born out of a rape. So it was the owner raping one of his his property. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that has always been something that has been known within our family. And like they live like a town over. So eventually after kind of the laws were changed, and after things become kind of got better in terms of the freedom, it's like, let me pay you off to go away type of deal. And so my great grandmother grew up knowing who her father was, but not being able to have a relationship with him because of the circumstances. It was, and so that was really tough for me growing up, especially in a small town when you're like, well, okay, well, that
that's my great dating pool. That's my great granddaddy.
You know what I'm saying?
But
like,
I can't
you know
even,
what I'm saying? Like you just So just to know that, I can remember a time when I was a dispatcher for 911 in the county that I grew up in, and one of my coworkers says, "I want to show you something." And it was a really cool guy. We had been, never had any issues, and just seemed like a cool cat, man. So I go to his house, and he's, doing the hospitable things, giving me water and all this kind of stuff. He says, "But now I want to show you something." On his wall is a picture of a plantation, and he pretty much showed me my family on his wall. And so that was like,
to see that as like a plaque on somebody's wall.
Yeah.
It's like
and so even if it's like that's your personal history. Yeah. It's like, what, like, bro, like, what do you get out of showing me that? Like, what am I gaining from this? From knowing this, from having to relive that through seeing this. And it's like, I know my people, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I know, and maybe that's not how I choose to remember them, or I want to see them. And so that really hit hard to me. There's been when I was in college, I was almost engaged at one point, and I woke up one day and my girlfriend was gone. Like she had vanished. All her stuff was out of her condo. Like she was just gone. I was at Auburn University, and come to find out, her dad had came in the middle of the night and he just got her. He said he paid up 4 months, because that's how long we had left in the semester. Paid up 4 months of her rent, paid the rest of her tuition balance off, unenrolled, took her out of her sorority, and it was all because I was black and she was white. Like I had met her mom, I had met her sister. It was like, and so I ended up like, because I really cared about this girl at the time, and I was like, well, let me write this guy, man. I was telling him, I was like, this is who I am, this is what I represent, like this is where I come from, like I have only the best intentions, for your daughter. And he basically he wrote back to me, and he's like, well, this sounds great if you were interviewing for a job, but you're talking about dating my daughter. He's like, and I don't care if Jesus was black. He's not dating not dating my daughter. Yeah. And so and then so I told her, I was like, man, well, maybe you can take him, because I really cared about this girl at the time. I'm like, maybe you can take him and your parents and y'all go talk to your pastor. So they go, and I think about that pastor a lot, because I really appreciate the fact that he told him the truth. You know what I'm saying? He was like, this is wrong. Like, this is not what heaven's gonna look like. Whatever you have imagined in your head. Like, there's, as long as this young man has got good intentions for your daughter, like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And so they left the church. Like they completely went to a different part of town. And so I think about these, those are kind of like major incidents that happen, but you see and you hear it, and it's traumatic, man.
Yeah.
It's traumatic. It is the constant reminder that you are always at risk for being mishandled, misappropriated, and dismantled by someone who doesn't know you but doesn't like you just because of the way that you look.
Yeah.
And that is, without the hope of Christ, that's hard to reconcile, man.
Right.
So on the flip side of that, I have white family members who come to our family reunion when we have it. Yeah, I mean, but they were, it's well known that they had a part in the possession of some of my family members. Yeah. But through a lot of hard conversations, through a lot of living in community together, now they come, pull up at the family reunion it's nothing. Like,
that's awesome.
I talk to them, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's been reconciliation. Yeah. But they initiated it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, they initiated it by speaking truth. It's like, hey, our ancestors were wrong. This was wrong. But y'all are family. We want to be family. Yeah. And it does not have to continue to be like this divided, separated thing. Yeah. Will you allow us the space to come in and just sit and just understand and learn and heal with you? And we were like,
that's awesome.
And that goes back to, it's personal and it's small scale and it's slow. Yeah. That's how it, but in society, no matter what you look like or think, that thought of healthy stuff grows slowly, and it's got to be personal and small scale, at least at first. Yeah. Nobody wants that. Well, nobody wants the personal responsibility. You don't want to have to spend the time. To take the time. That's We've all gotten so selfish and used to instant stuff.
The instant gratification of
that
the photo op looks good.
I got that's a cool hashtag. Well, but we're gonna fix this slow and quiet. Yeah. And slow and quiet doesn't fly nowadays with anybody, especially our generation and younger. Yeah. And so it's,
I agree, it's slow. I think there is something to be said for actually taking the time to address some of the systemic things too, though. Like, kind of like the relationship that Josh and I have and that we will have from now on, like, there are some things that grow out of that should have an impact on the larger society. Yeah. Yes. So like, if it only because the temptation of that is like, when we put that kind of timetable on it, like, there's still people suffering while we're figuring it out. Yeah. And so, and then when we do figure it out, that's when we need to act into to the larger systems. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, as soon as I wake up and realize what's going on, I need to be screaming to the top of my lungs. Yeah. Like, the Old Testament talks about the prophet crying in the wilderness, like crying out. Like, it needs to be that. Yeah. Like, we need to be crying out like, this is not okay. This has got to change. It's almost like if, how quickly would you go get the life raft if you saw your family member drowning? Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and you can't tell them, well, hold on, just be patient. Yeah. It'll happen. It's like, but while it's happening, there's generations of people who are dying and who are having to, who are having to live under those circumstances. So I think there's something to be said for doing something now too. Those now things.
Not just this one relationship spreading, because if you and Josh, y'all's wives just went somewhere, I think, to get hanging out, and
hopefully the Eggers.
And hopefully not anywhere to spend money.
With Eggers now. Right? But that relationship, y'all could have the greatest interracial relation, however you say that. Yeah. But if the people around you aren't trying to do the same thing with other people, it doesn't matter.
Well, and then too, if what Josh and I share in terms of educating one another, loving one another the right way, if it is not infectious to the point to where people see us doing it and it affects them, and then we take it a step further and support one another and speak up for one another, then it's not in vain. There's been, prime example, there's been some people that have seen Josh and I's interaction on social media that have hit me up personally and privately and kind of been like, can you believe it? I was like, yeah, I can believe. Like, this is my brother. Like, we I understand him. Like we have an understanding. I've lived life with him.
Yeah.
He's solid. He's good. I had to stand in the gap for him in that moment to defend him and be like, look, he good. Like, you know, I understand his. I almost said it. I was gonna say I understand his heart.
Oh gosh, that non-pastor's heart.
I know. No.
Edit
that out. No, but
no.
I understand his intentions. And I understand his
you get his motives.
Yes.
You get his insight.
And so like,
you don't kill him when he accidentally says something insensitive.
And there's going to be times where Josh where I may be misunderstood or misapplied, and he's going to have to stand up for me. Or there may be some instances where you guys are hearing people talk about issues that you've now educated yourself on, and you understand it a little bit better, that are kind of speaking nonsense. You got to be like, hold up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's vice versa as well.
Yeah.
With social media type stuff.
It's Remember the Titans. As jokey and corny as that is, like where they become a team and then
left side strong side.
But they actually they defend each. It's like exactly what you're talking about in a Disney movie, but it applies.
When I've had a situation where we I'm trying to say this without divulging any information.
Yeah, it's hard.
But I've had a situation where I was with a group of people, and we saw somebody that I knew. And it was an African-American girl, and we just started chatting up and stuff. And the group of people that I was in was a very like they're going to razz you type of people. But after we left, they made some comments about like, oh, you just, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, that's not, hey, I go to church with her.
Yeah.
And that shut it down immediately.
It usually does.
It was just like, no, I go to church with her.
And what that does is it lets people know that type of thing can't happen around you.
Right.
And that is the difference between going from a diverse place to an inclusive place.
Yeah.
Right? Diversity means that all of us are going to the same dinner, right? But I'm on the menu and you're at the dinner table. Inclusion is because we're all in the same place, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're diverse. We're here. Well, yeah, but our experiences here are different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but inclusion means we're all at the same table, sharing the same meal under the same pretenses and circumstances. And so what happens is when we speak truth to power, when we stand up for our fellow man, and it creates a situation where there can truly be an inclusion of everyone. But that's scary for some people, man. That reality is horrific to some people. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Do you think time is slowly fixing it? Some, because I mean, obviously, from 1776 to 1865 to 1965, we're getting better.
Yeah. There's some things that there are some things that I feel like time and active people with good intentions and good hearts have corrected.
And honestly, generations of people dying, going away that they're crazy racist thoughts. They're not there to keep that going.
And so now our job is they leave in their wake crazy racist
and
systems.
You put it away.
Our job is to dismantle
those systems.
Maybe not even the whole system, if need be. That we got to be willing to take that stance, but to pick out and weed out,
right?
Yeah, right. Because we take these things into our everyday lives.
Yeah.
So the same person that the girl's dad that I was talking about, he's a banker.
Yeah.
So guess what happens when he sees a black person come in for that loan, that business loan or that personal loan? Right, there could be some bias there.
Yeah,
or if you're or a judge or a cop or a teacher, or it's not just a coat that we take off on and off. Right, if you have prejudice, hatred, and malice, it is. The Bible calls it a heart of stone, right? And he says in the Old Testament, I have to give these people a heart of flesh. They have a heart of stone. When your heart is cold in that way, it permeates into every part of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's why we have to have a love and a ethic that challenges that.
Yeah.
See, now it's not enough just to be not racist. Mm-hmm. We got to move from having a not racist society to an anti-racist society.
Yeah.
A society that makes racist systems, practices, and people uncomfortable in their own skin because for a long time it's been a situation where they've been comfortable.
Yeah,
like you can come out and burn crosses in people's yards, and you can terrorize church. That's another crazy thing I think about in terms of like looting and rioting.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about the KKK being a Christian based organization that used to terrorize people's like property, you know what I'm saying? Like if you were a SCLC president or NAACP president, or if you were the local minister who was speaking out in terms of justice, you were gonna get something burned in your yard.
Yeah.
You're gonna get bricks thrown in your window. You were gonna get, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes drug out of your own home. But it's like, but now all of a sudden we want to, have the moral argument of whether or not this thing is appropriate or not. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, wow, like for real, but I think in terms of there being a place for that, what happened in the civil rights movement is they became uncomfortable with being visible with it. Mm-hmm. Now we got to make it a point to where they're not comfortable at all operating in that pretense. Because the love that is felt between the people who love one another are standing up for one another so fervently in Christ's love that they like, man, we can't operate like this. We don't have a foothold.
There's something you said a minute ago that really hit home was you said the person, there was somebody when you were talking about your girlfriend's dad at the time,
ex-girlfriend,
ex-almost fiance.
The wife's gonna give me.
The ex-girlfriend's dad, where he didn't want to be a part of being around you because of the way that you looked. I felt that because that any girl I've ever tried to date, that's how I felt. So
it transfers. It transfers. But we
kidding,
can get you a facelift though, Josh.
Father Time's been rough.
Father Time.
It's been rough on Josh.
But that's man. Yeah. It is and there's some things that we have to that we can do, but then there's also some things that we have to depend upon the Spirit of the Lord to do in us, to work in people's hearts and minds. And so when you're doing that work of seeking justice and equality for all people, and you believe in that, then there's some things you just can't take personal. You know what I'm saying? It's just like,
absolutely.
Think about how long it took the Lord working in our hearts to get some of the things right that we got right finally by His grace. It's all by His grace that we do these things, but it doesn't prevent us from trying. And so we just gotta keep trying to help the least of these and to create a equitable community that Christ will be proud of. Right?
Absolutely.
And so I believe that's
but you're not ever going to get closer to somebody you never spend time with.
That's right.
So
that's exactly right.
Be like, so like we're Alabama white men. There's a large portion of the country that would never have a conversation with us. And but then want to fix everything.
Or that would frame that conversation in their own presupposition about what white men from Alabama think and look like. And
And so like, how am I supposed to like build a bridge with somebody that wants nothing to do with me because of stereotypes, like we said earlier. And like, so it's got to be like this.
And so one of the things that I will tell y'all as brothers in Christ to be encouraged by is that if you're going to be a bridge builder, right, you got to be willing to be stepped on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're going to be the bridge, you're going to be stepped on, man. And people don't want that. People don't want to embrace that. They want it to feel good and be comfortable and not be sacrificial. An instant
bridge made by nobody.
That's right.
You hit a button and there's a bridge.
That's right.
Well, that ain't happening. It can't happen that way.
It's gonna be bumps in the road. You're gonna have some uncomfortable times and moments, and there's gonna be misunderstandings. There's gonna be heartache, but what is birthed out of that for the glory of the Lord and His church is so beautiful and so worth it, man. It is so beautiful and so worth it. And I asked a brother of mine, I said, man, and I'm talking about whiteness as a construct. Like if you had to lay down the construct of whiteness and all that comes with it in order to live in true beauty and community, Christian community, like would that not be worth it? You know what I'm saying? Like laying that down, because when you think about it in terms of what the Bible says, the Bible deals with ethnicities, right? It doesn't deal with the racial categories that we use, white, black. It doesn't deal with that. It deals with ethnicities. So like Jesus has given us an ethnical identity, right? That we should be proud of, right? Yeah. Like if you're Irish or you, because I like to do that. I'm like, well, what are you? Where are you from? Yeah. And people are like, I'm white. No. Where your people from? Yeah. And it's like when we lose that idea of that, we gain so much more, because you get to get in like Irish, Russian, wherever. Yeah. It has a history. It has a culture. It has but we hold on so tightly to this American idea of like the white American, that it's like we lose all of this other stuff. It's like if we're a melting pot, where'd you melt from? Yeah. Where your people from? Where your folks from? Yeah. And that's something that I value as a man of color, because like everybody doesn't know their story like I know mine. Like everybody doesn't have the luxury of knowing like where their great grandparents came from. And so like I want to celebrate that history. I want to celebrate that culture. And that way I can appreciate yours too. Yeah. But if we boil it down to just black and white, we lose so much. That the Lord wants to give us through the ethnicities that He has given us. Because tribes were a thing back then. Ethnicities were a thing, and that's okay. Yeah. But when we boil it down to just the color of a person's skin, like it's
well, what a stupid thing to gauge anything off of. Yeah. It's like how much melanin you have in your skin.
That's just man.
Is a determining point. That's because that's what I've said this, and this like I'm not I didn't want to sound like one of those stupid white guys. Like, I have black friends. Yeah. I'm not racist. But like I'm not racist towards a certain group of people. I'm a like attitudist.
You hate people with attitudes?
Well, not just like a specific, closed-minded.
Oh, okay.
Just like it's not the color; it's the type of person you are.
Yeah. It's like that's fair.
You're angry at stuff you don't understand, and you think people that don't agree with you are stupid. It doesn't matter what color you are. I don't have nothing for you.
Well, it's like Dr. King said. It's not for you. Yeah. It sounds like what you're describing is the content of the character, right? So it's the character and not the color. Yeah. And so, that's understandable.
Yeah. If my neighbor does stuff I cannot stand, I don't care if they're clear, or green. It has nothing to do with that.
That means
clear
they're
would be pretty
aliens,
weird,
and we probably need to kill them.
Yeah, that's another podcast though. I want to be in on that one too.
So Google that was Josh Julian saying kill aliens. Not me.
But man, this is like so. Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to touch on? Is there anything that you feel like needs clarification, or you want to ask us? Or
so I did have a question, man, because and y'all, like, we can absolutely like cut it off right here if y'all don't want to talk about it. But it's something that
rolling. We're rolling.
I didn't fully. I haven't been in on it, but I've been hearing about it in bits and pieces because I just got back on social media.
That's so healthy.
Yeah, man. When I'm in school taking classes, I kind of get off, but I just got back home. But did y'all see the kind of the covers that Funny Man's been giving Chris Hodges this week?
Oh gosh, no.
Oh man. Okay, well if y'all haven't seen it, then
I need to watch that.
Are you talking about like the negativity towards Chris Hodges right now?
Yeah. So apparently, like on his social media, like he was found liking some.
Yeah. He liked Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA.
Yeah, and then
he liked some of his posts.
Yeah, and then Candace Owens was saying some pretty stereotypical kind of racist things on Twitter. He liked Candace Owens' post too, and I was like, but he addressed it like in a Saturday prayer kind of thing.
And this morning,
okay, see, I didn't see it this morning. I have to go back and watch it, but like I was thinking, like this is a moment right here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because his influence is so widespread.
Especially here,
to like really address some of those things, and like it's a really good opportunity. But I feel like sometimes our not necessarily pride, but like the pressure, right, of being politically correct, the pressure of being saying the right things in the right moment, can sometimes hinder progress in those areas. And I didn't know if y'all were, up on it, or what your thoughts were about it.
So
because it's a multi-ethnic church,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
And by design, it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Just for transparency, I would probably have liked most of those things he did. Just a white conservative guy. Yeah, that's me. I like Charlie Kirk. I've listened to him before. He's really smart. He makes some good points. Anyway, I have a hard time. Like, I'm gonna like you or not, depending on what you do on social media. That doesn't matter to me much, because but I have been at Highland since 2012, so 8 years. I went through Highlands College, their seminary school, graduated from there, been recommitted my life there, met my wife there, met half my groomsmen there, met Josh there. Pastor Chris, I was telling my wife this on the way here, there's probably 2 or 3 people on the planet that if you ask the 100 people closest to them, like, what are some negative things about them that you don't like? And they really can't come up with much. He's one of those people. Yeah. Like, he has never publicly, obviously I don't know privately because I'm not close to him, but the stuff he does, the stuff he challenges Highlands and Highlands members to do, and what we put our resources and money and time and effort into, there's not a racist cell in his body. And regardless of, like, I don't know exactly which 75 posts he liked of Charlie Kirk or Candace or whatever. He's never, and I'm cynic. I'm cynical, very cynical. I'll pick the dark out of something in a minute. I can't. I haven't seen it. I've got 8 years worth of evidence stacked up, and if I go through all 8 years of it, I don't really have anything to justify him being a racist or a bigot or.
Well, and so I've got like 2 points similar. I've got friends that I know that are on staff there and that are African American, and and they've been on staff for a while. If there was anything in private, because they've spent tons of time with him, if there was anything that was just blatantly or like had undertones, that'd be gone. Like,
or they'd at least be talking about it.
You think so?
I think, because
do you
from in personal conversations, maybe not publicly, but like with me and them, like there's no like untouched topic between us. And so I feel like if there was something that was happening, it would at least be said in jest or like, you know, like.
Because I guess I'm thinking about the times that, like, there were certain people at our previous ministry job that we would never say anything to, because it's like, if I bring this up to this person, it gets back. I could lose my I could lose my job. I could it's just like we didn't have the fortitude to speak on certain things to certain people because we knew the risk.
Well, and some of us did lose our job,
right
when we talked to that person.
Exactly. And so, and so I guess what I'm thinking, like, I'm looking into what you do in private on your own personal page. Like, nobody controls that. You know what I'm saying? I guess I'm thinking in terms of, like, nobody controls what you like, what you repost. And I'm not saying that he's any type of way, because I don't know him personally. But I guess I just been thinking through, like, if I was a member of that church, and apparently, like, he felt like something had gone awry to address it. You know what I'm saying? Because if there's something that's like completely false, because he's a, like you said, he's a very popular pastor and has a huge following. I'm sure there's crazy stuff said about him.
Oh my gosh!
Well, and that's the other thing I was going to say.
You can't address everything.
Yeah. The other side of things that I was going to say is Highlands has been a church for, what is it?
18 years.
18 years.
20 years.
And
2001.
Since I've been a part of it, there have been people that, because I'm like Lee, I'm a cynic. Like, I'm gonna look into the bad side of things before I jump off into something. And like even with pastors that have started going there, or like that have they hired onto staff, like I go back and look like, okay, well, what happened in his past? Why is he not a pastor anymore? Why is he on staff here? And out of all that stuff, like, in 18 years, 19 years, and people have been actively trying to dig up dirt.
Yeah.
And like this is like the hill that they choose to like crucify him on.
Yeah.
It's like, and like granted, like I haven't looked at the posts that he's liked. I saw like 4 or 5 of them, just like looking through social media and saw, and I was like, well, I mean, and I don't know the Charlie Kirk guy. I don't know Candace Owens. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know any of those people, you know, and but like just looking at those posts, like those 4 or 5 posts, I was like, I mean,
and I think it's
conservative
like,
post.
Yeah. And I think when I think about how it would, like when you are doing the work of a multi-ethnic church, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, and like we talked about earlier, just heaven not being our home, a third option. I'm assuming that's talking about
it's come together.
Yeah. And so like if I'm leading this people and leading this this diverse group of people, and I'm not as outspoken about some things, but then I'm really propping up some other. It's like it leaves room for doubt in some people's mind.
Yeah.
Not saying it's right or wrong, but for someone who is a person of color sitting in that congregation, is like, well, man, like you said something about this incident after people came for your character in terms of like what you could potentially be in terms of bigotry, racism, or whatever, right or wrong, whether he is or not. Like you chose to speak on it after it became personal for you, and not necessarily like coming out and speaking on it. Yeah. Boom. Like when it, you know what I'm saying? And especially having in mind that you are someone who is shepherding image bearers of color in your congregation. Is like, man, like and we've all agreed, like, man, this was horrible. This was horrific. And it's like and I think a lot of some of that is like kind of protecting, like not wanting to jump to conclusions or rush to judgment, or
that's mostly what it is, honestly.
Making a statement that will upset certain people, but it's like, but you comfortable liking this on social media? It's like, I don't. For me, I was just like, man, come like.
And so from the other side of things, where I've seen a lot of people post where it's like, oh, well, he doesn't speak out against this or he doesn't speak out against that.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that. For every like situation like this that has happened, the next service, whether that be Wednesday night, Sunday morning, Saturday morning prayer, he speaks out against it. And he's like, this is wrong, and he talks about, this type of thing shouldn't happen. And like I've never there's never been a situation where I was like, why didn't he talk about that? Like he's at the forefront of it, and maybe it's just that he's not posting something on social media that says like, hey, this is what I talked about this Sunday in regards to that. So and maybe he could have done a better job of that.
Yeah. Think about it like this. I would personally rather him do no social media post and address it to the congregation than to just throw up a post with the hashtag so he's not a racist.
Yeah. Like, and so I think that for me, I would absolutely, he would, would address it with, because
that does happen, not with pastors specifically.
Oh, it happens with pastors too. Like,
I'm gonna throw this hashtag up, so I'm good. Yeah, I'm good on this one.
Yeah, yeah. And I would rather him to address it with the congregation, absolutely,
and think through it first and put together a thoughtful. And he does that.
When all the stuff too that the church has done in the communities in Alabama,
the outreach
stuff that's like, because I've been a part of some of those outreach teams, and it's never that's the reason that our church exists, is to help the community,
regardless of what community it is,
regardless of what
or
community how it's made up, like, and it's never like a we're going to do this so that we can post stuff on our social media. It's like, no, like we have like it's not Christ Health Center in Birmingham is like,
it treats more people than like the hospitals in Birmingham do.
Yeah. And it's like, if you don't have any insurance, you don't have, like, you can go there and get treatment, and it's, and to me, it's not a like, oh, well, this is a race thing. It's like God told us that if we're going to be here, then we have to look after these people. We have to help the hurting. And like, that's what we're doing. And so like, I mean, I know it's really easy for a lot of people too to like see a big pastor and throw stones,
especially if you know nothing about them.
Yeah,
like people in California dogging Pastor Chris. Like you probably didn't even know he existed until today.
And I think too sometimes other like mega church pastors have had an influence on people's perception
of mega church pastors.
Of mega church pastors. And that's why I wanted to hear, because I knew that I didn't know you were a Highlands member, but I knew you were at Highlands, and I haven't.
And there probably is some bias on both of our accounts.
Yeah.
Because he's my pastor.
Yeah, he's our pastor.
I'm not following somebody that's not worthy of being my pastor. Like we're going, if he's a racist and a bigot and like hates people and like preaches from hate, I'm not going there anymore. Yeah. But if you've seen some of the posts as well, so the Saturday morning prayer, you've seen that.
Yeah.
Where he had the 3 or 4 African American pastors on staff come up during that and like embrace him and talk. And there were.
Do you think those guys would just willingly do that just for the job, or you think it's like?
Oh, absolutely.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. There's always been people. There's always been people throughout history that will placate to a moment, that will succumb to convenience rather than to speak. You know, so we see that in the Bible. Look at Jonah. Yeah. He's comfortable. Yeah. Right. God wants him to go speak to Nineveh. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, I'm good here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so you're always going to have those individuals who will, you know, and we call them token. You know what I'm saying?
I know. So that's what I was getting at. There were people that on Friday,
and I'm not saying that that's what those guys are. That's not what I'm saying.
Friday,
but there are those people.
Yeah, I hear that you're saying those people are that.
I hear on Friday the mob said you hate black people, and then Saturday he talks and embraces with his black staff members, and then they say you're just walking them up on stage to make you not look racist.
And
what do you want me to do?
The Saturday morning prayer was not a moment to like, hey, I have the
white
social
friends,
media. Well, no, I don't think it was the social media thing. Yeah, because I think that was from the stuff that's happening in Minneapolis, because that's the way that we've done things in the past. Yes. When a situation like this has happened, we go, hey,
perspective.
This guy. Hey, we need you to come up here. We need you as a voice for this community to pray or to do whatever, to show that we're, you know, in agreement with each other. And so I don't think that Saturday was because of the social media stuff. Yeah. It's not unique. He did address like, hey, you know, some things on my social media or whatever have come up on Sunday today. He said that, but like, I don't think Saturday was in reference to the social media.
And who knows? Like, here's the thing. I'm offering up because, like I said, I wanted to ask you guys because y'all are kind of in it. Yeah. Because that is one of the things, y'all, that the enemy has used. He has used the well-meaning intentions of the church to propagate and to hold up intention. Not intention. Some of the stereotypes and you know what I'm saying? Like you had people who would go out and go to Sunday service in the morning and then put on their white robes in the afternoon. You know what I'm saying? And we've kind of transitioned away from that now in terms of the like overt stuff. Mm-hmm. But subtly, some of those things can still remain in the institution in the church. And I'm not saying that was the case here. Yes. But what I'm saying is like we have to be hyper vigilant as worshipers to hold our leaders accountable. To say, to hold our leaders accountable and say like, and call them out so they can grow too. You know what I'm saying? And I think for so long, especially in the South, man, we have held up our spiritual leaders on this pedestal, and it's like once they fall, we're done with them. You know what I'm saying? And we just write them off.
It goes both ways because one crazy thing has happened. So Highlands is there's like 20 campuses now all over the state. Yeah. There's a bunch. Yeah. A couple of years ago, they wanted to do West Lawn campus, inner city Birmingham
we
campus.
Talked about that.
But it's
extensively
and did it. And there were a ton of small church African-American pastors that said he's a racist because of that.
I was one.
Really?
And I didn't say he was racist. No, I'm sorry. I should let you finish your sentence. Dang it. I raised my hand too
I
soon.
said he was a racist.
I didn't say that, but I was completely against it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was completely against it. And I'll tell you why.
Still am?
Still am.
Okay.
Still am. And conditionally, not against it forever, but conditionally I'm against it. And Josh and I, we talked about this in great detail, sat down and had lunch about it. Mm-hmm. But in short, there are on that side of town, there are churches that are already in existence that are doing the work, that are trying to save souls and meet the needs of the community. And a church such as the Highlands going into that community where there's already Christian community established, if we're all together and we're all one, without sitting down with those pastors and those leaders and saying, hey, we know you've been here for 30, 40 years doing the work. What are some of the needs that need to be met in this community? How can we partner with you to do that work that you've been doing as well, instead of kind of, and maybe he was a poor choice of words on his part, but when the initial article came out, he was like, yeah, we're going to go in and we're going to be the church. We're going to, we're going to minister to the drug dealer. We're going to minister to the addict. And it's like, well, what does that say of the churches that are already there? Are they not being the church?
Well, to play devil's advocate to that, you could say that about anytime they plant a church.
Yeah.
You could say that about Tuscaloosa. Like, hey, why didn't y'all just come to...
Yeah, but think about the area
churches
that they planted in, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's not any churches around in that area. You know what I'm saying? Like, God in his sovereignty places the local body where he places it. But you also do so out of respect. And it's biblical, too. Think about Paul and his great ministry when he traveled around. When he made his second pass through on that track to Colossians, Ephesians, Corinthians, Galatians, when he went to these churches, it was always gracefully, in respect, and he honored the present leadership that was there, that was established. Now he's a great apostle, right? Yeah. But he's saying like, hey, I'm going to reach out to you in Christian love, and I'm not going to assume what the needs of this local body are until I see it, or I send my representative to say like, this is what's going on. And he always, I've heard word from, or I'm sending word from. Like there is a certain undertone, because here's the thing: if you come into these spaces and these places, especially with the help of the government, right? Because they were talking, it was a meeting with the mayor, right? And we're against
and local black pastors,
some of the local black pastors, and it's like, but what about the separation of church and state? You know what I'm saying? That's a slippery slope. So where are you falling on that? Like, we got to pick a side on that almost. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, why is it okay in some instances and in some instances it's not? It's like when it's in our benefit, we're good with it. But then when they say something that we don't like, it's like, well, no, get out of it. And so the only problem that I had with the whole thing, like I said, it's just the way the statement came across. It was just like, man, and I know some of those pastors personally who have labored, and all they need is the resources. So why do you have to plant the physical building to do the work in the neighborhood? Why can't we advance it through? Because you're large, you're huge. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I'm talking about the institution at Highlands. It's like, it's huge. So it's like, well, man, that's already, but if you talk to these pastors and you see like, man, they're already doing the work. Like they got a second chance program at this church. They've got a feeding the hungry program. They've got a resource program here where they're helping in these communities, and they do. Cause I like I said, I know, and I've been involved with it. It's like, but just let them get the resources they need to continue to do the work in the community. That builds trust and relationship with the community. Then you can come in, because you don't have any equity in this community. And what do the people of that community have to say about your presence? Because you're just plopping in, and it's like nobody. It's almost like nobody's co-signs you to be. You know what I'm saying? For you to do that work in that area where people have already had relationships and Christian community established. Let's go talk to them first.
If you think about it that way, so Church of the Highlands was asked to come to inner city Birmingham by the mayor,
exactly.
Well, but
and that's a slippery.
The mayor knows,
slope.
And local church leaders too. They did a big round table before they ever put a building downtown. They did, but I think the thought behind that, and it's just a different perspective, is
absolutely
what we hear a lot of times in inner city places or lower income neighborhoods. where you just come through and hand out food and hand out toys at Christmas and stuff is, well, y'all don't have any roots here. You don't care about us.
Yeah.
So if we plant a church in the middle of it and fund it and run it and help people through that building with roots, it means more. It's not just handouts. It's we don't want to just come in and put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
Right.
We want to come in and show that we are going to continue to help no matter what. And
so I agree that is the correct model. But
not that you have to do one or the other, but that's
right. Who's gonna come in and be a part of that? Who's gonna fill that building up? It's gonna be the community, right? It's gonna be that local community.
Yeah.
And I'm legitimately asking, do you have a lot of people who drive from outside coming in
to the West Long, to the inner city?
I'm
Birmingham
saying like to any of the campuses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's how we decide where to put the next one.
Yeah.
Is they look at the connection cards, like which has your info on it, and they run programs seeing where the zip code, the most zip codes that we see where we don't have a campus. That's where we go next.
Yeah.
Like the Auburn and
Opelika
campus.
Yeah.
Was,
and then Columbus, Georgia has a campus now. And there is
because they were seeing a lot of people come from Opelika to the Auburn campus, and a lot of people come from Columbus.
There's a lot of
Georgia.
data that goes into where to put the next campus.
Right. And I think that that's I think we're just gonna agree to disagree.
Yeah,
because,
no, that's fine.
Because I just feel like the when you have a local body and community of people, like that local Christian community should have the most input on the worship, the liturgy, the discipleship, and the leaders. Like I'm called by God. I'm not called by the government.
Right.
Like the government has not called me to pastor and to preach his word. And so like I can work alongside them, but I definitely not going to take directives from them. You know what I'm saying?
They don't live.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I'm not going.
For me, it was, we already had a campus in, I think the West Lawn campus before we had, was it like East Birmingham or something campus? So there's two of them.
It was one. It was built into the Christ Health Center. It was like a campus built into the clinic.
Yeah.
And then they saw where people were coming from.
Yeah.
And they said, well, and I don't think I don't think at all the thought was we can do it better than y'all, so get out of our way. I don't think it was. That doesn't sound like Highlands at all.
Yeah, but I think when you
I get it though. I get that thought.
Yeah,
though. Yeah.
When you overlook the pastors that are in that community in terms of including them in the work, that's kind of what you're saying officially without saying it. Because when you think about it, like how many of your league pastors are people of color? Not even just African.
The actual like campus pastor.
Yeah,
I think it's 4 of the 20.
Okay, so
but I mean,
and then is the one in that on that campus, is he a person of color?
And from inner city Birmingham, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
but that,
so I was right where the Woodlawn, there's a Woodlawn campus and a West Birmingham campus.
Birmingham. Okay.
So when the Woodlawn campus, we had the Woodlawn campus for a while.
A decade.
Yeah.
That's
And
the one
then-
connected to the clinic.
Okay.
But
West
then
Lawn.
had its own building outside the clinic that is at was at Woodlawn High School.
Yep. And they had church
then,
there, yeah.
Like nobody said anything about that one, but then we put one in West Birmingham, which is the campus that was causing so much uproar. And it was like, to me, it was like, well, we've already been doing this. Like, we're already over here doing this. So it's like,
we can do it in 2 places, we'll be twice as effective.
Yeah.
That's because
to me, it was also like, what do we gain? Like, because it seemed like when everybody was causing uproar, it was like, to me, it was like, well, what do you think we're gaining by doing, like, is it like, you think it's going to be just like like we're going to get like some huge resource from this that we didn't have before?
And they partner with anybody that wants to partner with them.
Yeah. There's
any church.
One Sunday a year, we have like a giving back service that like they do this throughout the year. But one Sunday a year, they highlight and they go around to like different churches who are in areas that they also serve in. And it's like, hey, this church needed a new roof. We paid for them to have a new, they didn't have the resources to do it. So we paid for them to have a new roof. And it's like, there is that, like, we still go into the community and help the churches that need help. And to me, it was just like, well, I don't think we're like gaining
Yeah.
I don't see how there would be some kind of like racial.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it's necessarily racial, but I'm talking in terms of the. So, what you gain is you gain the physical. First of all, you partner with the government, so it's going to put you in the good graces of. And it puts you in a sticky position that when you partner with them in that way, it's going to be very hard for you to speak out against them because you've closed it up to them.
There's got to be clarity there because they're not partnered with.
Well, I'm talking about when you in terms of planning ministry with the government, because that's essentially what they did. Like even if they don't hand you a check, like you partner with the government to plan ministry.
Yeah.
And so in nowhere do we see in the New Testament Christ partnering with the Roman, you know what I'm saying? The Roman government, like it's just that's why he says that clear separation, like render what to Caesar is Caesar's and what God is to God, because a kingdom agenda cannot coexist and coexist with the agenda of man.
Politics.
You know what I'm saying? But what you gain is you gain access, you gain the physical building. You know what I'm saying? Because where Highlands pops up, people gon' they gon', you know what I'm saying? It has the potential to be a gentrification type deal where you got people moving in, coming in, and it kind of disrupts the ecosystem of what the people that are already there. You know what I'm saying? Because the city's gonna build around. Because if you're successful in your ministry model, the city's gonna start building around you.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because they know that your church is safe and secure. That it's gonna attract a lot of traffic. Yeah. And so what the city will do is they'll start plotting to build stuff around you, and then before you know it, you got. You know what I'm saying? Like we up out of there. Yeah. And I'm just giving you the train of thought of someone who is.
It's a different perspective.
Just a different perspective.
So, but if it's not Christian related at all, like the gentrification of over there by the Barron Stadium in Birmingham and Uptown, that whole area where they built all that by the BJCC, like that's being gentrified because a bunch of like our age white folks are moving in.
Yeah. And some black folks
do you have the same feeling towards that?
Yeah, yes,
if it's not a church.
Yes and no. Gentrification is absolutely. I don't rock with it at all. No matter what it is, because it goes back to, like I said, equity, fairness for all people, and access, right? And so when you go in and you drive up property values, when you look at these places that before these people enter, the affluent enter, and I don't even necessarily think it. You can boil it down to just race. It's socioeconomic as well, because it's not going to be an Aldi. It's not going to be a Piggly Wiggly. It's not going to be something affordable there in the beginning. But but then it's going to be world market. It's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like these expensive places that,
Publix.
That people don't have access to
Target
to get to get what they need. Like I just want some place that's not Piggly Wiggly, not Target. I want something that's aggressively medium.
There you go.
Right? Yeah. So and that medium is giving people the resources for a quality of life and living together.
Yeah.
Why is gentrification a thing? Because during the 70s and 80s you had a white flight in mass from
out of the city. Yeah.
And that's why we had suburbia, right? Mm-hmm. So now that there's a flight back in, it's like you're pushing people to the margins and back in. It's like you're toying with, like I said, there's never any equity or fairness. Like move in next to them.
Yeah.
Like put your high rise right next to the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like put your, and at first when I saw the Highlands project, I was like, oh, okay, that's what this is. But when you have people coming out in who don't understand the inner workings of the culture and who haven't done the work to understand.
That's what you were
people.
Asking. Was that what you were?
Yeah, it's
white people don't go to the wet. People from like Hoover and Vestavia aren't going to the. It's the inner city going to the.
But see, but like we just talked about, there is a flight back to the inner city. You see what I'm saying? So eventually, it will be. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
If people are like, oh, if we move here, we got a Highlands campus right down the street.
And like I said, this is not a condemning statement at all. It's just something to think through.
Yeah.
Just another perspective to think about in terms of how we engage one another in the body of Christ, having a global Christian community mindset that, man, there's some brothers and sisters in Christ who are already doing that work here. We got plenty of resources in the reserve. Let's bolster what they're doing, assess what the needs are, and then if they need us or want us to come in, we'll come in. Because guess what? If we don't, man, we got plenty to do where God has planted us. And so that way you build those strong ties with the community and with the leaders that are already doing the work as fellow and equal laborers in Christ. And it gives you the opportunity to do so much for the kingdom. And that's a part of listening and learning. Though.
That's definitely happening too. Yeah. It's there wasn't a we're going to build a building here without talking to anybody first. Like it was definitely.
But after me and you had that conversation, I think this goes back to what you just said, is it's about having those conversations, about, thinking through that stuff. Is like, after that conversation with me and you, I started looking at things through that lens. To filter to filter it. And it's like, then I had to go back and go, well, what do I think this is? Is this or is this that? And it's a part of having conversations like that. And that's
absolutely.
That's what it's all
after
about.
Our conversation, I thought through some things too, just in terms of like the
how
model
wrong
of ministry.
Josh is.
No. Just the
what a bigot.
The model of the model of ministry and the approach to things. And I was like, okay, it's not as heretical as I maybe I thought in the beginning. And it's like, that's the beauty of living in community. So,
knowledge creates like strength too. Like I'm so confident with knowing that like there wasn't any underbelly, gross, nasty stuff going on with the Birmingham stuff because we're close to it. I've been close to it. And so that's the thing. Like when you're arguing with somebody, I almost want it to be like, if I could snap my fingers like Thanos and have like a rule or two, it would be, we don't get to argue about something unless you can either cite it or tell me specifically, like cite it from something or personal experience. If you just don't know and you're screaming from a megaphone about something, you don't get to talk. And
now I think that's part of the problem too, is like that we place too much value on the writings of history when like everybody's not at the table writing.
Right.
Yeah. Like, and so history can have
winners write history books.
Yeah. And so, and it's not written from the position of, or even with the input of the minority. So prime example, I had to do a project in my Christian missions class this last semester on anybody that I wanted to, or any topic that I wanted to choose in terms of Christian mission. My professor pointed me to George Lyle. George Lyle is the very first missionary in American history. Very first one to go outside of the United States and to do missions. He went to Jamaica and he later on went to some European nations, but little history is known about him, about George Lyle, like African-American Baptist preacher who started out in Georgia, South Carolina, and then was an indentured servant to a French general, ends up in the Jamaicas and starts spreading the gospel like wildfire all throughout. Even had some connections to the Baptist Association in England. But it's like when you ask theologians or you ask historians about the history of evangelism in America, they're going to point you to Henry Judson, you know what I'm saying? Or some of the other individuals not that guy. And so like, I'm always kind of, we have to balance experience with, what is out there in terms of facts. And so, man, it's a delicate balance, but here's the deciding factor, right? It's filtering these things through the word of God because it is inerrant, it is infallible, right? And it also it deals with our present reality. Nothing new under the sun, right? So, the word of the Lord and God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And his mandates and his calls to what we should be about are not going to change. That's why we can disagree on the finer things, the finer points, and still have the same mission and same mindset of what God has called us to do. One of my professors said, he said, man, people in the Christian faith, we are like people who speak English. He said, now you may be from up north,
Boston.
I may be from the West Coast. You may be from the South,
Kentucky, West Virginia.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like we all speaking English, but it's a different dialect, it's a different accent.
Yeah.
And he said the problem only comes when our accent becomes so thick that you can't understand the language.
Yeah.
And so as long as I can understand that you are holding on to the orthodoxy of our faith, that you are the tenets of our faith, or, you know, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and him crucified, man, listen, we can rock.
And really
you know
the only way
like,
to get to that point is like long-term, personal, close connections.
To that understanding, But and you begin from that place.
Yeah.
Like I don't when I have a conversation with you, I don't have a conversation with a Highlands member or a white man or a 30-year-old or a teen. I'm having a conversation and a dialogue with someone who bears the image of Christ, you know, and a brother or a sister in Christ. And so that's where it has to begin. And that's where it needs to end.
Labels have their place, but like they don't need to be dictating stuff.
Yeah, man.
It's like you can be black, you can be a male, you can be in your 30s.
Yeah.
None of that's wrong, but that's not, those aren't filters.
That's right. It makes up who I am, but it's not all of who I am, you know? It's not the beginning of who I am.
Absolutely.
And so, thank y'all for clarifying that for me and,
man.
and engaging me with that.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that because, and I just thought about that because when I was driving over here, I was like, man, what if they asked me what I want to talk about? And I was like, well, I want to know about this. So I appreciate y'all.
That's what this whole thing was we came up with questions I wanted to ask a black guy. And like, as funny or maybe even insensitive as that sounds, like I guarantee you there's a bunch of our age white guys and girls that have never
engaged,
asked questions for more than 5 seconds with somebody, or just said like, what does Rihanna think? Like, I don't give a crap what Rihanna, like, listen.
And that's the thing, like that is something that what you guys are doing here is important. You know what I'm saying? To give that platform, to give that space for us to have this dialogue, but then too, like encouraging your listeners to do that work, to learning about others and seeing how beautiful it can be. You know what I'm saying? And that it's uncomfortable and it's not fun always, but it's worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I don't speak for all black people,
right?
You know, so I wish I could sometimes, but you know.
Yeah,
it's like what Kanye say? No one man should have all that power. I wish I had that power.
Honestly, I wish I could speak for white people too, because I'd be like, "Hey, these guys, they're not. We don't agree with these."
Have you guys seen the Chappelle episode where they had the racial draft?
I'm watching Chappelle's show right now.
Oh man,
I found it on the internet.
I thought you were going to say the black white supremacist.
Oh, that's the very first episode.
Clayton Bixby.
Gosh,
yeah.
That junk's so funny.
And that's, to some degree, that's got to be okay too.
Yeah.
Like, obviously not if like that's how you make your life decisions, but also you got to give some people a little bit of grace. Like, okay, you said something or did something kind of off.
Absolutely.
But like,
then
we've got to be able to have humor about it too.
Yeah.
Like,
comedy is good. Comedy has its place. As art imitates life. So, laughing about things is, it helps. And then in terms of, like you said, just being gracious to people.
Yeah.
As long as you are repentant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You have a repentant heart and mind. It's like, we can work with that, man.
Yeah.
What gets me is individuals who are just unashamed, unrepentant, don't want to think about anything different in terms of like clear things that the Bible has with the way that you're living life and engaging people. That's where I have the majority of the issue, because I don't claim to know it all, and I tell people all the time, I don't want to serve a God I can fully understand.
Heck no.
There's some mysteries of the gospel. There's some mysteries about this beautiful gospel that we found that if I can understand it in my finite mind and understanding. I don't want to serve. I don't want to serve that God. I want to serve a God who is bigger than me, who knows more than me, who is more powerful than me.
We're supposed to have a childlike faith.
Yeah.
Your kid doesn't understand everything you tell him to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to. You're a kid.
That's it.
He's the parent.
But there's some things in there, man, that are as clear as day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And justice and equality and treating our fellow man with dignity and respect, speaking up for the least of these, those are all central to the gospel message.
Yeah.
And that's where it's got to start. It's got to come out of that.
Yeah. Personal responsibility leads to a Christian ethic that is concerned with the least of these.
And if you're doing it right, it's attractive too.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, if you're doing everything the Bible tells you to do and you're like being sincere about it, you're going to attract people.
That's right.
It's attractive.
Yeah.
The work that we're talking about doing is not initially kind, but it's ultimately kind.
For sure.
Yeah.
So initially it's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be hard work, but it ultimately is going to be kind to all those involved. Because I tell people, and I use me and you as an example, I said, that police officer, man, he's missing out on something too.
Yeah.
He's missing out on the love of Christ in his heart and the redemptive nature of, and the beauty of the redemptive nature of reconciled relationships. Yeah. He's missing out on that. Yeah. It's not George Floyd lost his life, but that cop every day that he holds that in his heart or whatever the bigot or racist or whoever, on either side is like, they're losing out on something too. Yeah. There's a loss there, that is taking place from both those who oppress and those who are being oppressed. And so that's why God has come in his grace to save both.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And like, if you base your whole life off of like what's comfortable and what feels good and stuff, surgery makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because you got to cut into somebody to fix something.
Yeah.
Like
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. Like kind of how uncomfortable Josh is with how long this is taking.
Yeah.
He's kind of like,
it's not,
he has moved from y'all listen.
I can feel it.
No.
Look,
No. Listen, look, he started out like this and then he's like, he really dug in and now he's like this.
I'm
he's
waiting
about to get up.
I'm waiting for him to sit like this. Like, okay, guys, we got to go, man.
So they're not going to see that because the GoPro stopped recording because we went too long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, I'm not like, I'm not worried
they'll
about.
hear it.
Yeah, they'll hear that Lee.
So they'll hear the couch rustling as he move and shuffle.
Yeah. Lee was standing on the couch, crouched on the couch.
Oh man!
But
this is supposed to be an hour, right?
I know.
Hour
That's
15?
what like. Hey, but honestly, like
we
this
could have did this in 2 parts for real.
Yeah, this probably will be 2 parts. Yeah, you might want to move your mic back close to your face again so that people can hear you. Yeah, this will definitely be a 2-part. But honestly, it was. I think it was needed for a lot of the people that listen to our podcast, whether or not, whether or not they stick around for both episodes or just one. Like honestly, it's like there's stuff that needed to be talked about. There's stuff that they needed to hear. And I don't mind it going, this long. Joe Rogan goes for like 5 hours sometimes. So.
He just signed a $200 million deal.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a marathon, man.
Yeah, but I mean, like it was needed. It was good. This was great conversation. Yeah. I mean, this is probably.
I'm glad it happened.
Out of all the episodes that we've had, I mean, this has been like one of the most meaningful to me.
I've enjoyed it.
So
I've enjoyed it, man.
We usually talk about poop and stuff. Yeah. So this has been a little different lane.
Yeah,
I got to go back and listen to the episodes, man.
Gosh.
And I got some friends I'm gonna send it out to. We're gonna start you a little mini following, man.
We'll take it.
Hopefully,
get 5 stars. That's fine to me.
Yeah, 5-star reviews.
I need to go do that right now.
Yeah,
give you 5 stars.
But honestly, hey, anytime you want to come back, you're welcome.
Yeah, man.
Great conversation.
I'm glad to have met you now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Man, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's to God be the glory, man.
Yeah.
It's been some good conversation.
Dude, I would hate to be around somebody that were 100% the same.
Yeah, that'd be
what
boring.
a boring life. I might as well not even have friends. I'll just talk into a mirror.
Yeah. And that's the way this podcast was kind of birthed too. Was like we're both like on different ends of the spectrum most of the time.
You want to see Josh get fired up about something? Talk negatively about Tesla.
Really?
He'll fist fight you over
That's your heel, right?
I love Tesla. Man.
Okay. Did you see the launch?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
How was it? What was?
It was good. I mean, everything went. Nobody died, so
that's always a positive.
That's a positive.
It's always a positive.
But
space never got me. I never really.
I love space.
And now, asteroid movie, I'll give you that. That's great.
Yeah.
But just like we went and got to the International Space Station. How much did that cost me in tax dollars?
Well, that's the beauty.
At least it's private enterprise now. That's perfectly
that's
fine.
The beauty of
y'all
SpaceX.
send as many rockets up there as you want, as long as I don't have to pay for it.
But here's the thing: like, have y'all seen the new Steve Carroll?
Oh yeah, Space Force.
Force.
I watched the first episode of it.
Is it a show?
Yeah.
Oh,
you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
Yeah. Steve. Oh gosh.
You talking about Michael Scott?
Yeah.
Steve Carell?
Steve Carell. Yeah. You said that, didn't you?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, Steve Carell. Yeah.
All he can think about is getting out of here.
We watched the first episode and it was hilarious. I haven't seen anything out past that, but
I'm trying
funny.
not to have Office expectations for it.
yeah.
But it's hard not to.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Have you watched
Oh,
any
yeah.
of it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it that no piped in laughter? It's like
It's
just
no
a
piped
show?
in laughter. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that
That's
and
good stuff.
Money Heist is what I've been on. So
I hadn't watched that yet. I just started Secession,
okay.
which is like HBO, which all that did was just make me mad at rich people because I was like, you guys got 3 private helicopters you can fly around in. And
yeah, it's almost like at some point, man, we just gotta stop people from making money, print them a certificate and say, hey, here, you won capitalism.
Yeah.
Like, let's start over
You
again.
can do
know what I'm
whatever
saying?
you
Like,
want
do
now.
whatever you want, but you won. You got $1 billion.
Yeah.
What do you need with $1 billion?
Like Jeff Bezos, it's like, hey, look, just do what you want, and then we know it's already paid for.
You know what's crazy is when they got divorced, his wife took half and became the 5th richest person on the planet.
Whoa, I didn't know it was half.
Yeah.
She took half.
Oh yeah,
Dang.
because I think they got married before.
They were married when he was working out of a cubicle.
Yeah. So there was no prenups.
Whoa.
Yeah. Had no idea they'd have a
Betty-
Why would I have a
Betty
prenup?
wishes now. Well, he probably that's a drop in the hat to him. He don't care.
Half?
Even half. He's
But
about
even
to be
half,
the worst.
that's right.
No,
he's
you're
about to
right.
be the man, the first trillionaire.
That's true.
He
That's true.
makes like
He don't
$1,000.
That's true.
He makes like $1,000 every 15 seconds or something.
Yeah.
It's just like what a life. What a fantasy world that
I make
is.
that.
I'd just be afraid that if I made that much money, man, like I would just be so afraid for like my personal development with the Lord.
Oh my
How
god.
do you maintain
Hey, look, you can
humility
fast.
and
Look, you can
You know?
fast from your own private island that you flew there in your private helicopter.
Yeah.
Hey,
there's
look,
nobody to hold you accountable on that island though.
Ask Epstein.
Maybe.
There.
I'm gonna fly in an accountability partner.
Yeah, just like all these mega pastors are doing now for like celebrities.
Oh yeah.
Like Kanye
Oh, yeah,
West
yeah,
and
Justin
like,
Bieber
Yeah,
and,
they're
yeah.
all flying in their pastors, and then it's
Yeah.
like, at what point is he actually a pastor and not just a guy who's your hype man? Like,
yeah, or a yes man, even
Yeah,
worse.
yeah.
We prayerfully that's not what it is, but
Yeah.
yeah,
man.
That's what I can only hope.
yeah,
But
yeah. Well, guys, thank y'all so much.
yeah.
man.
No, thank you.
I really appreciate
honestly,
this.
Corey
This is
Savage.
yeah,
Episode
It was
11.
a great episode.
Maybe episode 12 too.
It will be
11
yeah.
and 12.
It'll definitely be.
Will
in
this
2
be your
parts.
first 2-part?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
That's
Our
dope.
longest one thus far has been an hour and 28,
Okay.
Dang,
and
that
this is
seems long.
pushing 3 hours.
Is this pushing 3 hours?
Wow.
I feel like Rogan. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it
My
just hit
hair's
3 hours.
Okay.
Dang.
Yes.
That's longer than some of his.
That's
So,
good.
yeah.
good.
But this will be 2 parts for sure, and I mean, but it was needed.
Yeah.
Like it was good conversation.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like I want to take some mushrooms now. Like
Whoa,
Joe Rogan.
whoa.
Like Joe
Oh,
Rogan.
okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like-
use your brain now, Josh.
hey, what? There was 2 of us on this
I was
couch
like-
that were
I was like,
confused.
well,
I was like, oh, okay.
Well, we
Oh
don't.
yeah,
we don't-
mushrooms.
we don't
Is
get
that
on
what-
the guest.
Is
Yeah.
that what y'all do after these?
up
or-
Muay Thai fighting and tattoos and bald headed and mushrooms.
So
And
after
pot.
the podcast ends, ladies and gentlemen, look up how they make mushrooms, how they grow mushrooms,
It's
and
They
then
cow poop.
imagine
Bunch of
our
poop.
friend here. Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
a bunch of poop.
Yeah,
It's only
Yeah.
only thing they grow in is
Yeah.
doo doo.
yeah. That image, I just
we
can't.
don't do mushrooms for clarification.
I don't even eat them
That's
on a
right.
pizza,
That's right.
much
Yeah.
less the crazy ones.
Yeah.
Beast
Yeah.
and Divinity
Here you
School.
go. I don't- yeah,
that
for real.
was Josh Julian talking about doing mushrooms.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Just everything gets blamed on Josh. Next time I go to fly, I'm getting frisked and all kind of
all
stuff.
kind of stuff.
I'm getting TSA checked for sure.
All right, let's get out of here.
But yeah.
Episode
All right,
11.
so-
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Corey
Thanks,
on.
Corey, for
Yes,
being a
thank you
part
for
of
having
it.
me. It was
good.
Follow us,
Perspectives.
listen, all that fun stuff.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
See
we're
y'all
out.
later.